Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into how to grow an amazing online community, something that's super relevant these days.
For sure.
And to help us with this deep dive, we'll be using an article called Effective Strategies to Build a Strong Online Community, written by Mihigo ER Anaja.
Right.
It was published on November 1st of this year. So whether you're trying to build a community for your business or a side project or just for fun, you're going to learn a lot of valuable stuff today.
Yeah, the article's great because Mihigo doesn't just give you a list of things to do. He really gets into the why behind each strategy, which is what makes it so helpful.
Yeah, I love that he does that. Right away, Mihigo emphasizes the importance of defining your community's purpose.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of obvious, but I'm actually kind of curious. What are some common mistakes people make when they're trying to figure out what is the purpose of their community?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people just skip this step entirely. They just jump right into picking a platform and setting up profiles before they even really know what they're trying to achieve.
All right.
It's like going on a trip without deciding where you want to go.
Yeah,
You might end up somewhat interesting, but it might not be where you actually want it to be.
I gotcha. Okay. So let's say I'm thinking about building a community for people who, I don't know, really want to learn how to code, right?
Okay.
What are some questions that I should be asking myself to help define the purpose of this community?
That's a great example. So think about it this way. What would this community actually provide for all these aspiring coders out there? Would it be a place for them to find resources to help them learn, or maybe share the projects they're working on,
Yeah.
or get feedback from people who are more experienced, or even connect with others to collaborate on projects?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It could be all of the above, but the important thing is to define that purpose, because that's what's going to guide all the other decisions you make, like what platform to use, what kind of content to create.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So once you know the purpose of your community, Migo says the next big decision is choosing the right platform. And he goes into detail about the pros and cons of a bunch of different options, like Facebook groups, Discord, Reddit, Slack, even custom forums.
Right.
So what are some things we should be considering when making this decision?
So it's kind of like choosing the right neighborhood for your community to live in.
Oh.
Each platform has its own kind of vibe, its own culture, its own set of features. So, for instance, if you have that community of coders we talked about, and it's all about working together in real time, sharing code, and giving each other quick feedback, a platform like Slack, which is made for teams to communicate, could be a great fit.
Okay, that makes sense. What about a platform like Discord? I've heard that's really popular these days. What are the advantages of that one?
Discord has gotten really popular, especially for communities focused on things like gaming or tech, anything where people want to interact in real time. It's got these amazing voice and video chat features, so you can really feel connected.
Yeah, like you're actually in the same room together.
Exactly. Like you could host live coding sessions or Q&As or just casual hangouts where people can chat, share their screens, learn from each other right then and there.
Now that you mentioned it, I've seen some really cool stuff happening on Discord. But what about people who might not be super tech savvy? Mihigo also mentions Facebook groups, and those seem a lot easier to manage, right?
Definitely. Facebook groups are really easy to set up and use, and they're great if you want to reach a lot of people, especially if the folks you're trying to reach are already hanging out on Facebook.
Right, makes sense.
The downside is that they can feel a bit impersonal, kind of like a public park where anyone can just walk in, and it's harder to get that close-knit feeling.
Oh, I see.
They also don't have some of the more advanced features you find in Discord or Slack.
So if I really want to build a close community with a specific focus, maybe Facebook groups isn't the best option.
It really depends on your goals and what kind of culture you want in your community.
Okay.
If you're just looking for a place for people to casually drop in, share a few thoughts, connect with others who have similar interests, then a Facebook group could be perfect.
Gotcha.
But if you want people to be more actively involved, collaborating on projects, having deep discussions, then a platform like Discord or Slack might be better.
Interesting. Okay. Now, what about Reddit? I know that's a platform that's known for having some pretty strong communities.
Reddit's a really interesting one. It's really good at tapping into those existing communities and using the knowledge of a lot of people. Reddit thrives on content created by its users, and a lot of its most successful communities are pretty much self-governing. So if your community is all about sharing knowledge, asking questions, having discussions that are open to everyone,
Right.
Reddit could be a great option.
What you said about Reddit reminds me of something else that Mihigo talks about, which is custom forums. Why would someone go with that route?
Custom forums give you complete control over your community's design, functionality, and how it feels overall.
Okay.
You're not limited by what the platform already has.
I see.
So if branding is super important and you want to build a community that's really unique and reflects your specific vision, a custom forum might be worth checking out. Just keep in mind that it does require more technical skill and resources to set up and maintain.
Right, so it's a trade-off. This is all super helpful, but I imagine it can be a little overwhelming, trying to figure out which platform is the best fit.
Yeah, I bet.
What advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of stuck?
I always tell people to start by really understanding what your community is for, who you're trying to reach.
Okay.
Ask yourself, where are these people already spending time online? What platforms do they already know and use comfortably?
Yeah.
Choosing a platform that fits with their existing online habits can really make a difference.
That's a really good point. It's about meeting them where they are instead of trying to force them to adapt to something new. I love it. Now, I know there's so much more to talk about when it comes to building a great online community.
Oh, there's a ton more.
But before we move on to that, I want to talk about this whole idea of setting clear guidelines for your community.
Yes, that's important.
It's almost like creating a social contract, right?
I like that analogy.
So what are some common mistakes people make when they're setting up these guidelines, and what should we be thinking about?
Yeah, that's a great point. Guidelines are super important for creating a space where everyone feels safe, respected, and able to get things done.
Yeah.
One common mistake is making the guidelines too vague or generic. Like, instead of just saying, be respectful, give some specific examples of what that actually means in your community.
Oh, that's interesting. So instead of just a general statement, you want to be really clear about what kind of behavior is okay and what's not okay.
Exactly. It's about setting expectations right from the start.
Gotcha.
And it can be helpful to get your community involved in creating or updating these guidelines.
Oh,
This helps people feel like they're part of the process and encourages everyone to take responsibility for keeping the community a positive and inclusive place.
that's a great point.
Huh?
And speaking of creating a positive and inclusive space, I'm curious to hear more about.
Well, I think we'll have to leave that for next time. We're just getting started and there's so much more to cover.
All right, sounds good.
In part 2, we'll dive deeper into how to get people engaged, build those relationships, and keep your community thriving.
Can't wait.
Stick around.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We're continuing our conversation about creating awesome online communities using Mihigo ER Anaja's article. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of setting up clear guidelines, which is like laying down the ground rules for positive interactions.
Yeah, for sure.
But just having rules won't create a lively community, will it?
Definitely not. A community with just rules is like a library with no books organized, but totally boring.
Yeah, I get that.
Mihigo's next point is all about bringing that community to life, getting people engaged and participating.
It makes me think of those parties where everyone's just kind of standing around awkwardly.
Right.
How do you get people to actually start talking and connecting with each other?
One thing Mihigo suggests is starting by asking questions that really make people think. Instead of just making announcements or sharing links, try to spark real conversations.
Yeah.
So like if we're talking about that coding community, you could ask something like, what's the most frustrating bug you've ever run into, and how did you finally fix it?
I love that. It's a great way to get people sharing their experiences, maybe even laughing about some of their coding fails.
Exactly.
What are some other ways to get those conversations going?
Hosting events is another great way to do that.
Okay.
You could have a live Q&A with an experienced developer, or a virtual coding challenge, or even just a casual online hangout where people can talk about what they're working on.
Events definitely add a sense of occasion. It creates a shared experience for the community.
Yeah, totally.
And we shouldn't forget about the power of simply acknowledging and appreciating people's contributions.
Oh, absolutely. Even a quick thank you or a shout out to someone who shared a helpful tip can really make people feel seen and valued.
Right.
And that reinforces positive behavior, encourages more people to contribute.
I like that. So we're asking questions, we're hosting events, we're showing appreciation, and now the community is buzzing with activity.
Nice.
But how do we move beyond just surface level engagement? How do we help people create deeper connections with each other?
That's where building relationships comes in. And Mihigo's got some great ideas about this.
Okay, tell me more.
He talks about the power of having subgroups or channels that are focused on specific interests.
So like within our coding community, we might have a channel for web developers, another for mobile app developers, and maybe even one for people who love a particular programming language.
Exactly. This gives people a chance to find their tribe, so to speak, within the larger community.
Yeah.
They can connect with others who share their specific passions and challenges.
That definitely makes sense.
It reminds me of an online writing community I was part of years ago. They had this subgroup for sci-fi writers, and I met some amazing people there who were just as obsessed with spaceships and time travel as I was.
Oh, that's cool.
We would critique each other's work, share ideas. We even worked together on a short story collection. And those connections wouldn't have happened without that smaller, more focused group.
That's awesome. It's a perfect example of how these smaller groups can lead to genuine, lasting connections.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so people are engaged, they're connecting with each other. What's the secret sauce that keeps them coming back for more?
Mihigo hits the nail on the head with his next point, which is all about providing value through content.
Okay.
You got to consistently offer something that makes people feel like they're getting something special, something they can't find anywhere else.
Like a VIP pass or a backstage ticket.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be super formal or complicated. For the coding community, it could be something like sharing a weekly roundup of the best coding tutorials you found, or hosting an Ask Me Anything session with a successful tech entrepreneur.
Okay.
Or even just posting behind-the-scenes glimpses of your own coding projects, showing people what you're working on.
And Mihigo also talks about using a variety of content formats.
Right. It's not just about blog posts or articles.
So what else can we do?
You could try things like video tutorials, podcasts, interactive quizzes, even online workshops or webinars.
I see.
Mixing things up and catering to different learning styles will keep people engaged.
Okay, so we're creating valuable content, engaging our community, helping people build deeper connections. What else is essential for creating a thriving online space?
This might seem pretty obvious, but Mihigo really emphasizes how important it is to be present and accessible as a community leader.
Right.
Think of it like being the host of a party.
You wouldn't just put out the snacks and disappear.
Exactly. Being present means actually participating in discussions, responding to comments and messages promptly, showing that you actually care about the people who are part of your community.
It's about building trust, showing them that you're not just some faceless entity behind a screen.
Yeah, and I learned this the hard way when I was part of community where the leader was hardly ever around.
Oh, what happened?
It felt like a ghost town. People lost interest fast because they didn't feel like anyone was really invested.
That makes sense. Mihigo also talks about the importance of empowering community members to take ownership.
Right.
So how do we encourage that shared responsibility?
It's about shifting from being the only host to being more of a facilitator or coordinator.
Okay.
You can start by delegating tasks, like appointing moderators to keep the discussions on track, or creating an ambassador program where enthusiastic members can welcome new people and answer their questions.
That not only takes some of the pressure off of you, but also gives those members a sense of purpose and belonging.
Exactly. And it can unleash a ton of creativity and talent. Encourage people to host their own events, workshops, or challenges.
Right.
Tap into the diverse skills and passions within your community.
It's like turning renters into homeowners.
Yeah, exactly.
They're invested in the property now. So our community is doing great. People are engaged. Some members are even stepping up as leaders. Is there anything else we need to think about to ensure its long-term success?
One of Mihigo's most crucial points is about promoting a positive and inclusive environment.
Right.
It's about making sure that everyone, regardless of their background or beliefs, feels welcome, respected, and safe to share their thoughts and experiences.
Yeah, it's like making sure everyone at the party is having a good time, not just a select few.
Exactly.
But online spaces can be tough. Sometimes they can become breeding grounds for negativity. How do we deal with that?
Mihigo stresses that it's really important to address negative behavior right away and to be consistent about it.
Okay.
It's not about being a dictator. It's about establishing clear boundaries. So if someone's being disrespectful, spreading misinformation, or just bringing down the vibe, you got to address it.
It's like being a bouncer. Got to keep things under control.
In a way, yeah. But it's not just about stopping the bad stuff. It's also about celebrating the good stuff. Okay, so how do we do that?
Highlighting positive contributions, giving shout-outs to helpful members, showing off the amazing things that are happening in your community, that helps to reinforce those good behaviors.
Like a positive feedback loop, encouraging people to be their best selves.
Exactly. And remember, creating an inclusive environment is an ongoing effort. It's not a one-time thing.
Right, it's about constantly learning and adapting.
Yeah, and speaking of ongoing efforts, Mihigo's final point is all about.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
We're wrapping up our look at building thriving online communities, and we've been using Mihigo ER Anaja's effective strategies to build a strong online community as our roadmap.
Right.
We've talked about a lot, like defining your purpose, finding the right platform, creating a welcoming culture, and offering value and fostering connections.
We have.
So what's that last piece of the puzzle, the thing that really brings it all together?
It's all about taking a step back, looking at what you've done, and figuring out how to make it even better. Measuring your success and continuously improving, that's the key.
So we can't just launch a community and hope for the best. We need to actively track how it's doing and make changes along the way.
Exactly. It's kind of like tending a garden.
Oh yeah, I like that.
You wouldn't just plant some seeds and forget about them, right?
No way. You'd water them, pull out the weeds, give them some plant food.
Right. You'd be checking to see if they're growing, if they're getting enough sunlight, making sure they look healthy. So with our online community garden, what are some of the key things we should be looking at?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Mihigo suggests paying attention to things like how engaged people are.
Okay.
Are they actively participating in discussions, commenting on posts, showing up for events?
Makes sense.
How is the membership growing? Are new people joining? Are people leaving?
Right.
And how's the content doing? Are people reading it, liking it, sharing it?
Those are all really good indicators of how the community's doing, for sure. But it's not just about looking at numbers, is it?
Definitely.
We need to be listening to our community members, getting feedback from them, and understanding what they need.
You're absolutely right. Mihigo recommends using things like surveys or polls to get direct feedback.
Yeah.
Ask people what's working well, what could be better, what new features they'd like to see.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It shows them that you value their opinions and you're serious about making the community the best it can be.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And of course, things change all the time online. What worked last year might not work today. So how do we stay flexible and adaptable as community builders?
I think adaptability is so important. Being willing to try new things, experimenting with different platforms or formats, even shifting the focus of the community if that's what's needed.
Being open to change, seeing it as a chance to grow, not something to be scared of.
Exactly. You know, it strikes me that Mihigo's approach to building a community is a lot like the agile principles used in software development.
Oh, how?
It's all about constantly iterating, getting feedback, making decisions based on data. That mindset can be really valuable, especially when you're trying to build something as dynamic as an online community.
I love that connection. So what does all this mean for our listeners, the people who are out there building their own communities?
Well, building a strong online community is a journey. It's not a destination.
It's not about reaching the finish line.
No, it's about enjoying the ride.
It's about having a clear purpose, finding the right platform, creating a welcoming atmosphere, and being dedicated to providing value and building connections.
Right.
But it's also about being present, listening to your members, adapting to change, and always looking for ways to make things better.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Any parting words of wisdom?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that a community is like a living, breathing thing.
I like that.
You need to take care of it, be responsive to its needs, give it space to grow, and it will blossom into something truly special.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive on building thriving online communities. We encourage you to check out Mihigo ER Anaja's full article. You'll find even more great insights and practical tips there.
It's definitely worth a read.
We'll be sure to include a link in the show notes. Until next time, happy community building.